Hello and welcome to the channel of Ashaliach once again. I trust that God is blessing you. Today is the 3rd of October 2024. I'd like to share with you something very prophetic which has already started and is going to continue into the foreseeable future. So to begin with, I want to start in Matthew chapter 9 verse 10. And this is the complete Jewish study Bible. Matthew 9, verse 10. While Yeshua was in the house eating, many tax collectors and sinners came and joined him and his Talmidim at the meal. Joined Jesus and his disciples at the meal. When the Purashim saw this, they said to his Talmidim, "Why does your rabbi eat with tax collectors and sinners?" The religious leaders. Why is Jesus and his disciples sitting with tax collectors and sinners? But Yeshua heard the question and answered, "The ones who need a doctor aren't the healthy, but the sick. As for you, go and learn what this means. I want compassion rather than animal sacrifices. For I didn't come to call the righteous, but sinners." Jesus came to die on a cross for people who were sick, sinners. He came to give the opportunity to everyone, because we're all sinners, everyone who is prepared to come to him. He would take their punishment so that they could be set free. He very clearly tells us that he didn't come to call the righteous. He came to call sinners. He came to call you and me. But if we think about this just a little bit deeper, what were the type of people that Jesus would sit with? Those in the sex trade, thieves, robbers, murderers, deceivers, violent people, all types of sinners from the whole spectrum of sin. You see, Jesus didn't support what these people did, but he loved them. He came to set them free. Anybody who was prepared to come to him, he would not cast away. He would set free. Jesus didn't come to call the righteous, but sinners. But now, as I mentioned, something prophetic is happening, and it's gaining momentum, and it's going to go into the future. So I'd like to go back to 1 Samuel chapter 22. 1 Samuel 22. And I'm going to read the first 2 verses in that chapter. David left there and took refuge in the cave of Adullam. Now, this follows on from when David acted mad before King Achish of Gath. And David was able to save his own life by acting like a madman. But on the back of that, we jump into verse 22, and David's still on the run. He's on the run from Saul, and he ends up at the cave of Adullam. David left there and took refuge in the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and the rest of his father's family heard of it, they went down to see him there. Then all the people in distress, in debt, or embittered began gathering around him, and he became their leader. There were about 400 with him. So David's out in the wilderness. He's in this cave. He's pretty desperate. He's on the run. He doesn't seem to have many friends. Saul's trying to kill him. And of course, you've got the Philistines who would happily kill him as well. He just had to pretend to be mad to save his life. But here he is. And then we're told in verse 2, 2 Samuel 22, verse 2, it says, Then all the people in distress, in debt, or embittered, they began to gather around him. Three types of people: people in distress, people in debt, people embittered. And they gathered around David. And it says, and he became their leader. There's about 400 of them. So I just thought to myself, this message came because the Lord really started to speak to me last night. I was out and about, and I noticed certain things. That's all I'm going to say. I was out and about. And then I came home and I couldn't really sleep. So I got up from bed and I was in the living room and I was thinking a lot about this. And the Lord started to speak to me about the people that came to Adullam's cave. These different types of people. And so what I wanted to do was, I thought to myself, I'll do a Hebrew text analysis on 2 Samuel 22, verse 2. And this is what I came up with. Then all the people in distress, so those that were in distress. The Hebrew word is matzok, and it literally means distress, anguish, people in anguish, people in distress. But then it says in debt, and I was really surprised when I read what this meant, because the Hebrew word is nasha, and it means deceived, deluded, utterly deceived. So it doesn't sound like in debt to me. But so far you've got people that are in anguish, deep anguish, distress, people that are deceived, deluded, utterly deceived, and then embittered. And the Hebrew word is mar or mara. Remember the bitter waters from, I wish I could remember the reference now, but bitter waters, the waters of Mara. It means bitterness, discontent, discontented, great bitterness, greatly distressed, fierce temper. The sense of fierce temper being, these people are so distressed at the injustice that's been carried out against them. They've now got a fierce temper. They've got a fierce temper. These are the sort of people that gathered around David. They came to him at Adullam's cave, a real ragtag bunch, a right mix of people. People that are in distress, people that are in anguish, maybe distressed because things that have happened to them, again, great injustice, unrighteousness. Nobody cares for them. They're left all alone. They're in anguish. They're struggling to survive. And then a bunch of people that are deceived, deluded, utterly deceived. When I read that, it got me thinking about certainly things that have happened over the last 4 years, but also this movement where many young people are deluded, they're utterly deceived about their gender. And it's causing so much chaos and mayhem and turmoil in the minds of young people. And tragically, it leads to many deaths, many suicides. So many people but there's many people who have been deceived by their leaders as well. But then you've got the embittered people, those that have got great bitterness, they're discontented, they're greatly distressed, and they've got a fierce temper. These people are very, very angry at what has happened to them. You see any parallels with today, with what I've just been reading out to you? There's a lot of people that have got a fierce temper today when they discover what's actually happened to them. So you've got this ragtag bunch of people, 400 of them, and they gather round David. Now, can you imagine? David became their leader, but can you imagine the problems that David might have had in keeping this bunch in check? You've got a real mix. You've got from the very, very depressed and anguish, to those that have got a fierce temper. But Scripture tells us these people eventually became the mighty men of God. Took time, but these people became the mighty men of God. Excuse me. I need my herbal tea. Now, when we jump into 2 Samuel, we read about a man called Hushai. Hushai was one of David's mighty men. Now, by the time we get to 2 Samuel 16 and 17, we're reading about the story of David's son Absalom, who has betrayed David and basically driven David out of Israel. Not only have you had the situation with King Saul chasing David, now later on, his own family, his own son, is out to kill him and drives him out from Israel. But Hushai is one of his mighty men. And if you read 2 Samuel 16, I won't read it out, but read 2 Samuel 16 and 2 Samuel 17. Hushai infiltrates Absalom's camp. And you've got Ahithophel, who is giving advice to Absalom. But then he also asks what Hushai thinks. And in fact, I'm going to go to 2 Samuel just to read a couple of verses. 2 Samuel, I think it's 16, just bear with me. 16 verses 15 to 19. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the people, the men of Israel, came to Jerusalem. Ahithophel was with him. Hushai the Archite, David's friend, came to Absalom and said to him, "Long live the king! Long live the king!" Absalom asked Hushai, "Is this how you show kindness to your friend? Why didn't you go with your friend?" Talking about his father David. Hushai replied, "No, but whomever Adonai and this people and all the men of Israel choose, his I will be, and with him I will stay. Moreover, whom should I serve? Shouldn't I serve in the presence of his son? Just as I have served in your father's presence, so will I be in your presence." This is a risky move, but this is the bravery, courage of David's mighty men. He infiltrated the camp. Now, I want to just read to you a couple of verses, 17, 2 Samuel 17, verses 5 to 8. This is advice that Hushai is given to Absalom. Then Absalom said, "Now call Hushai the Archite, and let's give equal hearing to what he has to say." When Hushai appeared before Absalom, Absalom said to him, "Ahithophel has said such and such. Should we do what he says? If not, you tell us." Hushai said to Absalom, "The advice Ahithophel has given this time is not good. You know," continued Hushai, "that your father and his men are powerful men, and that they are as bitter as a bear deprived of her cubs in the wild. Moreover, your father is a military man, and he won't camp with the rest of the people. He tells them very clearly. He says, David and his men, they are bitter men, like a lion or a bear that's lost its cub. They are very angry and they are very bitter. And so Hushai has infiltrated that camp and he's giving advice which is going to lead to victory for David. But you see, we know that Absalom was killed, and David had instructed his men, don't harm the young man, don't harm my son Absalom. But the nature of these people was such that David couldn't completely control them, and his son was killed. And Scripture records that it was a great victory. This was a great victory for David and for his men. But David went into deep depression over the death of his son, and then he had to be reprimanded to get up and say, all the men should be joyous at this great victory, but the way you're carrying on because of the death of Absalom, your son, who was trying to kill you and us, the men are in distress. You should be joyous. The point I'm getting to here is the nature of these mighty men. They had fierce courage. They were individuals, they were independent. They could be very reckless, but their bravery was not in doubt. Bravery was not in doubt. These people became David's mighty men. These very people, the ones that are in distress, anguish, the ones that are deceived, deluded, utterly deceived, the ones who are embittered, discontented, greatly distressed, fierce-tempered, these are the ones Jesus came to save. And a move has started already. Jesus is reaching out to these people that are so far, they're not even on the fringes of society, they're way beyond that. These people that society and many in the church have no regard for, no compassion, don't care about. Jesus is reaching out and he is saving them. And he is building an end times church. And this end times church is going to look nothing like the church as we see it or understand it today. These people, they know how to fight. These people know how to survive because they've had to do it all their life because of what life has thrown at them. These people are going to look nothing like the modern church. Be prepared for this, friends, and be prepared to welcome them, and be prepared to reach out to them should God put any in your path. These are the ones that are completely despised by the world. These are the ones that many in the church even despise and don't want them in their church buildings. But Jesus is building his church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And that end times church is going to be filled with exactly the type of people that came to David at Adullam's cave. There's about 400 of them. And they are going to have those qualities where they can fight. They know how to survive. They've got the skills because they've had to use them all their life. And they will be used mightily by God. Friends, this is round 2 of a building of David's mighty men. But let's just rephrase that. This is going to be Jesus' mighty men and women. Jesus is in the process of building his end times church. Be prepared to welcome the new arrivals. God bless you.